Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on three. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. Today, we are welcoming back Melinda Wenner Moyer. She is an award-winning contributing editor at Scientific American, a regular contributor to the New York Times, and a former faculty member at NYU's Arthur L. Carter Journalism Institute. Melinda also writes the popular Substack newsletter, Now What? I love it. I'm a subscriber. Today, though, we're going to be talking about Melinda's new book, Hello, Cruel World, Science-Based Strategies for Raising Terrific Kids in Terrifying Times. Welcome, Melinda.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back.
We were just talking before we started recording. You're a rare returning champ on the podcast.
Yay.
And you were on years ago and talking about the genesis kind of and the ideas behind this book. And here we are with the book. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be back, and those years just like flew by.
I know, we don't know.
Tell me about it.
We don't quite know where they go either.
Tell me about it. So I'm going to start, Melinda, with something from your introduction. I'm going to quote this back to you. It feels to me, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, you say, that many issues and threats our children will have to manage weren't nearly so bad for us or other generations. That's the point that you start from, that we're kind of terrified on behalf of our kids. So tell us about that feeling, like how that manifests for you. What are the issues and the threats that keep you up at night?
Yeah, it's complicated because I also recognize that in many ways, like the world is a lot better than it used to be, right? But I do feel as if, and I talk to parents through my newsletter, and there's just so much angst and anxiety. And I think technology and social media is a huge one. I mean, everything's changing so fast there, and it's hard to know what our kids are up to. There's an increase in academic and extracurricular pressure that, you know, with economic inequality on the rise, we are feeling like our kids are not going to succeed unless we really push them. We know kids are getting less sleep than they used to be. There's climate change. There's the pandemic and how that might have affected our kids. There's school shootings that seem to be omnipresent now. Political unrest, polarization. Like there's just a lot that we and our kids are dealing with. And sometimes it feels like too much. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because in approaching the book, and we just did an episode about anxiety, and I always say, I think the number one, if I had to say this is the one thing that affects moms the most, it's anxiety, like worry and worrying about our kids. And then sometimes I stop and I think my parents, who we have long generations in my family, so my parents were born in the 1930s, and they were dealing with as kids polio, World War II, you know, they were facing these gigantic, very frightening things. But when talking to them, I mean, certainly they talk about their parents, you know, keeping them in the backyard during polio, being afraid of that. But this kind of pervasive, overall, amorphous anxiety did not seem to define their lives in the way that it defines our lives. So I'm wondering, as I opened the book, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we know that, I mean, you've done a whole episode on it, but we know that parental and especially maternal anxiety is super high right now. And so what you're saying is reflected in the data.
And do you think that there's a degree that we are, to quote my friend's grandmother borrowing trouble on this, like worrying more than we should be or need to be? Or obviously, all of the things you mentioned are real, are frightening. I was just listening to something about the airport and how they keep losing signal. Like, there's a lot of worrying things going on. I'm certainly freaking out. How much do you think is new anxieties? And is there part of it that we're just getting more information and feeling more tuned into our own? I think that my grandmother never stopped to be like, what's going on with my inner life? She was like, there's a roast to make and 6 kids to keep track of.
Yeah, right. I think there's a lot to unpack here, and we don't fully know the degree to which, I think in some areas, like with climate change, we should be really scared, right? With like fentanyl, we should be really scared. That was one I hadn't mentioned. Like fentanyl is a reason that I can't sleep sometimes when I think about my kids, and I'm like, oh my God, so many overdoses. But then I do really strongly believe that we are being fed these very fear-mongery messages about parenting. A lot of it's through social media, it's through influencers, it's through people trying to sell us things. Like fear sells, and we're being told to be overprotective, that overprotective parenting is good parenting. We're being told that social media is going to totally ruin our kids' lives. And I'm scared of the effects of tech and social media, don't get me wrong, but I feel like we're being told that this is like the end of the world. Our kids are doomed. There's virtually nothing we can do about it. We have no control. And so I do feel like some of it is kind of manufactured and very unhelpful, I will add.
But it doesn't mean we don't need strategies to confront it, whether or not it's in our heads or whether or not it's real or not.
That's right. Yes. That's right. And this book isn't like, don't worry about it or super worry about it, right? This book is sort of, I would say it's strategies that help you feel as a parent like you're kind of back in the driver's seat of here's how to help our kids deal with these very real threats.
I'm really glad that you feel that that's what the book provides, because that's what my goal was. I mean, when I feel anxious, I'm always like, what will make me feel better? And my coping strategy is like, maybe there are answers in the research. Let's dig into the research. Let's see if there's things that can make us feel better, feel more in control, make us feel like we have some agency here and our kids are going to be okay. And so I'm really glad that came through.
You're what we call in that context an Amy.
Yeah. I'm wired for get more information. Now, that is not always the road to certainty and relaxation, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is like, this is exactly how much you need to worry about. Does fentanyl powder float through the air and contaminate your kid's lunch? Probably not once you actually look into it. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure we started with like, this is a book that has a lot of good news. It's going to make you feel more calm and capable, not more, oh God, I didn't even think about that. Now I have to worry about that too. That's not the goal here.
Not just add to the list of terrors.
Right.
So there are 3 sections in this book. There are 3 core attributes that science says that kids need to thrive. So let's start with, what are those 3 attributes?
Yeah, so I split my book into these 3 sections. The first one is cope. So it's really all about the value of coping skills, why they're so important, and how we as parents can help kids develop healthy coping skills so that they can deal with, all the change and all the hard things they might encounter and all the difficult people they might encounter. The second part is connect. So this is all about how can we help our kids form strong and healthy connections with others? So how do we help them build and maintain friendships, other kinds of relationships, to feel connected? Because I'm sure you've talked a lot or heard about the crisis of connection that people refer to, especially among boys. How can we address that? And also, how can we raise our kids to really treat others with respect and compassion? And then the third section is called cultivate. And I kind of think of this as a life skills section. Like, how do we help kids develop the other skills they'll need to healthily engage with the world around them and the tools around them, like technology and media and finances, things like that.
All right. So let's drill down. We'll drill down to each of these strategies and talk about some of the research in the book. And so let's start with coping. How do you define that? Is it getting your arms around, here are the challenges and I understand them? Or is it don't worry about it? Or is it a balance?
Yeah, it's about helping kids develop the kinds of skills they'll need to deal with the difficulties that they're going to face. So it's like part of the way we do that is by letting kids have difficult experiences. But there's a lot of research that suggests that the more kids can have practice developing the kinds of skills, the kinds of mechanisms that they'll need to get through tough experiences, the more practice they have, the better they get at it, the more they recognize what works for them. And it's really kind of key to mental health, is like having the right kinds of coping skills and having an awareness of what works for you. It's like whenever you're feeling stressed, knowing what can I do to make myself feel better, to get myself through this. So it's not so much like dismissing the feelings. It's more actually acknowledging, recognizing them, and sitting with them, figuring out how to manage them and deal with them, and then eventually move past them.
And it strikes me that as these kind of new challenges have come up in our generation, it's parallel to more supervision of our kids, less free play, less free time. Amy talks about her yard growing up was always, there was some game going on, right? And 20 kids were just there figuring out the rules and figuring out the challenges and figuring out what to do when the really mean kid came around and cheated. And it does seem to me that these problems are presenting simultaneously.
Yeah, absolutely. That we're kind of not letting kids have the same kinds of...
That's right. That we are now kids, I think rightly so, because we've understood that a lot of dangers come from kids being unsupervised and bad things happening. But that the structured play and supervision that has come along at school and in sports, that kids are very much supervised all the time. And then there's always an adult navigating, oh, be nice, share the ball, share the car. And that we've lost a lot of the opportunities for like dangerous play. I mean, my brother and sister and I would be out in the woods, jumping from tree to tree, 25 feet off the ground. I would never let my kids do that. My kids don't have those opportunities. But I think sometimes then we feel like, where is the magic map to self-esteem or being able to figure things out? But our kids don't really have as many opportunities to kind of forge themselves in the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction. There's a lot of great things that have happened over the past generation in terms of keeping kids safer. And I just think about how we used to ride in the car, right? We didn't wear seatbelts. I was like crammed in the way back of my mom's car.
My Texas husband rode in the back of the pickup truck on the highway.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So there you go. Like, I'm really glad now that we have car seats and we have seatbelts.
Great that we stopped doing that.
Those are great. But we also, there was a survey that was done a couple years ago where researchers at C.S. Mott Children's Hospital surveyed parents of kids about what they let their kids do. And the parents were like, yeah, I think I give my kids an appropriate amount of independence. I want to. But then they also said, like, I would never let my kid, and these were like 9 and 10 and 11-year-old kids, like I would never let them go to the aisle next to me in the grocery store by themselves to get their own cereal. Like that feels that feels totally unsafe. I would never let my kids do that. And it's like, there's a disconnect here. Like, obviously there may be some supermarkets where that is not safe to do, but these were also parents who, when they were asked if they live in like a safe neighborhood, a lot of them said yes. So we have made some great strides in child safety, and that's wonderful, but we have kind of gone just too far in that direction. And now there's just no independence and no risk taking and not enough free play, as you were saying. And that's so important. Like play, this unstructured play without supervision from an adult is just so important for the development of so many skills. So,
like Margaret was saying, when the mean kid comes into the yard and cheats, like you're coping, you're learning some coping skills right there in the backyard.
Yep. And social problem solving skills. Also,
social problem solving, some social emotional learning. That's right. We're talking to Melinda Wenner Moyer, and her new book is called Hello, Cruel World. And we'll be right back. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. So there was something else in the cope section that I wanted to underline about rest and relaxation. So it's not just like, toughen up, kid, but it's also you deserve to not always be functioning at this high level. I'm a junior in high school right now, and oh my gosh, like the expectations, curricular, extracurricular, homework, everything else, it's a lot, and that rest and relaxation is important and deserved. And you say that in particular, we have to tell girls that they deserve rest and relaxation and fun, maybe even more than boys. Why is that?
So this first came out of observations of my own children. So what I started with was this anecdotal observation. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. And I noticed that my daughter was doing so much more domestic work, even though she was, 3.5 years younger than my son. She was helping with breakfast, cleaning up more, noticing when I was stressed and saying, Mom, what can I do for you? Can I vacuum the floor? Can I feed the dog? Whereas my son just didn't really feel as interested in offering his help. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if this is just a product, of temperament, like my kids are different, or if there's a gender imbalance here that is pervasive, that there's data on. And I looked into it, and there are studies, they're kind of heartbreaking, honestly, that suggests that our kids are watching us. They're watching what we are modeling in our homes. And I do a lot of the domestic work. I'm now separated, so my kids are seeing different things in different homes now. And women tend to do more of the domestic labor. We know this from the data. And that girls tend to adopt very early on this belief that they should be working more and have less entitlement to rest and leisure than boys. And it also ends up affecting their aspirations. And so we know that girls who grow up in homes where their moms do more of the domestic work, they end up having fewer career aspirations. So it's like, this is meaningful. And I saw that data, and it's pretty consistent. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So we really need to encourage our daughters to rest and relax, and encourage our sons maybe to do a little more around the house.
Pick up the slack, boys.
Right. So it's all about finding balance. But yeah, there is this very kind of strong pull, I think, based on kids' observations for girls to be feeling compelled to work all the time, and for boys to not feel that.
And while we're talking about this cope section, let's talk about self-compassion and that idea, because this is something that struck me as not something I think about specifically in this way very often. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to have a whole chapter on self-compassion at all. And then I started digging into the research and I was like, wow, there's really interesting research that links self-compassion to all sorts of good things, like less anxiety, less depression, more motivation, but also like healthier relationships, better physical health, all sorts of stuff that's really interesting. And I think sometimes self-compassion gets a bad rap. We think of it as like self-indulgence or self-pity
we
or
call
like
it for tweet on this podcast, which is something Amy's grandmother used to say when things were a little too
Just like, oh, please.
Oh, that's
Over.
amazing. Yeah, we think of it as like not taking responsibility. Like if we have too much self-compassion or our kids have too much self-compassion, they're not going to take responsibility for their actions. They're going to think they're never to blame. But that's not what the research suggests. What we find is that self-compassion actually helps us kind of accept our imperfections and move past them, not ruminate on them, not feel shame around them, and then be more willing to grow and learn and do better. So it's actually a very positive thing when it comes to accountability and motivation.
And there are actual practices. You quote Kristen Neff, who we've never had her on the show, but we've certainly had her name brought up on the show, that this is what she studies, self-compassion. And there's a practice that you can teach your kids and you can certainly teach yourself. And it just seems to me like, okay, self-compassion in parenting in a world where there are 100 things that you're supposed to worry about and how do you keep your kids safe? And like, this is not possible to do perfectly. So approaching this daily work with self-compassion for ourselves is also really important.
Yes, absolutely. I spoke with a bunch of self-compassion, quote unquote, experts who really study this. And they're like, I'm not so good at it all the time. We all tend to be self-critical. There's some really interesting theories that it's like we've evolved to be self-critical for various reasons. And so it is really hard. But I think even just a little bit of awareness, when we can be aware of it can make a big difference. And the more self-compassionate we are as parents, the more our kids will be self-compassionate because as I was saying, they're watching us and they're learning from us. And the less we can beat ourselves up out loud in front of our kids, the better.
The better.
I like that you said that we have to model healthy relaxation and leisure habits for our children in order to teach that. That's very important.
That's your homework,
everyone,
guys.
Make sure you model relaxation in front of your kids.
Yes.
Which doesn't mean doom scrolling, right? It means really relaxing, whatever that means, detaching from the anxiety producing things around us.
Yeah, that's really important for kids to see. And I think I've had to really work on that myself because I tend to be one of these people that like never sits down. I'm like, there's always something to do. I should be cleaning the kitchen. I should be, making muffins. And when I have downtime, I tend to fill it with these things that I create for myself to do. And I used to get really frustrated when I would see my kid's dad relaxing on Saturday mornings, reading the paper. And I was like, you should be up doing stuff. You should be cleaning this. You should be doing the yard. And then I realized, wait a minute, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe I should be relaxing. Maybe I should be reading the paper and modeling this for my kids. Because then they sometimes would sit next to him and read the paper, which is wonderful. And I was like, maybe I'm the one who needs to think about changing a little. Yeah.
So let's talk about the second part, connect. What is getting in the way of kids connecting?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So there's a lot of socialization that happens around how we engage with others, and it does often differ by gender. The norms of masculinity, the sort of stereotypical male, is really not supposed to show vulnerability and not supposed to show emotions. And yet vulnerability and emotions and connecting over emotions is how we connect with others. And so we are sending boys these messages from a very young age that they should not have the kinds of attributes and skills that are key for connection. And so what happens is we see that boys end up not having close friends, not feeling like they can talk to people, closing themselves off to their feelings, and then feeling very isolated and lonely from the time they're tweens and teens up until we know there's a loneliness epidemic among men. I mean, obviously, I'm overgeneralizing here. There's exceptions to all these. There are boys who are very open and willing to be vulnerable. Not everybody follows this pattern, but this is how we're socialized. Girls are really socialized to start sacrificing themselves for their relationships, for other people. And this really you start to see it more in the late tweens and early teens, where girls kind of start forgetting who they are, what they want, because they're always putting other people first. They're always thinking about what should I do so that my friends like me more, so I fit in. And they really start to lose touch with themselves. And so that's a different kind of isolation, but it is a form of isolation, and it can make us also feel very unhappy, lonely, anxious as well. So
And then let's talk about polarization, which is a growing problem among, I think, all of us. But would you say teens in particular are natively learning polarization as they come to have their own points of view? Is polarization sort of how they think it always has to go?
So it's really interesting. We know that as a society, we have become more and more polarized. And we do see that reflected in young adults. There's not a ton of research on exactly what's happening among teens. But when I talk to researchers who study polarization, who really try to understand why it happens, what they told me is that kids are very much watching us. We said this already. They're paying attention to us. Kids now are much more likely to be politically aligned with their parents than kids in generations past.
Super interesting. I think about that all the time. It used to be that your identity was, my parents are squares, I'm a liberal. And now it's like, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's like 80 something percent of teens and young adults are politically aligned with their parents, whereas it was like 50% in the 80s. So that's really interesting. They also point to social media, and just social media is all about like voicing opinions in brash ways. You know, having a strong opinion is really celebrated in our world now. And there's really interesting research too, showing that people are more likely to trust others who have a strong opinion, even if that opinion totally differs from their own, than they are to trust a person who is more neutral about a particular issue. Like, we really think it's good for people to have strong opinions. And we also, there's this belief that changing your mind is bad. There's like moral badness associated with a shifting of opinion. And that is really dangerous. We feel like we have to stick to our guns. And if we actually open our minds up and consider other perspectives and change our mind, it's like a weakness in some way. And so all of these things, our kids are growing up with all of these messages coming in, like, have a strong opinion, voice it, don't change your mind. I mean, that's just going to lead to more and more polarization.
I saw something yesterday on Threads, blew my mind. Just a small example of this. A woman was saying that she was in line. I don't know why I was being served this on Thread. I'm in line at Southwest, and at Southwest, you have sort of numbers you're supposed to line up by because you don't have a seat assignment, but you board with your number. And she got in line, and a woman behind her tapped her on the shoulder and said, like, what's your number? And her number was, you know, she's like, I'm 32. And this woman was like, well, I'm 25. And the woman who posted was like, and I was like, too bad. And I turned my shoulder on her, like, not today, lady. And this had gone viral, this post. And even though at least half of the comments were like, but this is the rules of Southwest, and she wasn't a bad person. And I just thought, like, this is definitely bad behavior. It's boorish behavior in line at the airport. And then she posts about it and gets tons of engagement, right? Which feels like agreement and feels like certainty and feels like strength. And so I thought about that when I read this part of the book, that strong opinions are rewarded.
Even if they're bonkers.
Right. Even if they're bonkers, bing, 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 bing. And so no wonder that's confusing for most of us, including kids.
Yeah.
And I see my kids as they get into the digital world, very much the digital feeding that we're all doing right now, which is like, this person did something wrong and now we all hate this person. Even if the person is wrong, I'm a little bit like, this is not a great way to be spending our time. Like, we are all collectively destroying a person who stepped out of bounds. It just doesn't feel like a great way to be building a society.
Yeah. It's like we've lost all capability for nuance. Like, it's just black and white thinking. And
and it does affect kids, because kids already have a little bit more black and white thinking, but I don't want them relating to their peers that way. As, you know, you get one chance and you blow it. And then when you apologize, we all say that apology wasn't the right kind of apology. And we all get to agree that you stink and we're part of the crowd.
Yeah.
It's kind of 7th grade girls gone wild all over the internet.
Yeah. Yes, totally.
Right. All of
Not
us
a
are
fan.
7th grade girls.
Oh,
That's
God.
right. That's right. All right. We're talking to Melinda Wenner Moyer. Her new book is Hello, Cruel World, and we'll be right back.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes, at the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
So we're going to talk about part 3, cultivate. But one thing that strikes me, and I've been thinking a lot about this, and I was thinking about it in relation to the idea of the second section, is that I think that historically we have had this very specific idea of like parents raise their kids can't wait to get out of the straitjacket that the parents are putting on them. Eventually they free themselves and they're like, get out of here, mom and dad. I'm my own person and I rule and you've always been a dummy. And that was certainly the way that I existed as a teenager. And that the shift in that is one of the most profound things I've seen in terms of societally, that like we're all besties with our parents now and we agree politically and we're all on the same page and we listen to the same music. And like, listen, I got my Beyonce tickets for Saturday and my kid's jealous they're not going. But I do think that that rebellion and cleaving that happens is a strange missing part of kids' lives these days.
Yeah, we know there's a lot less risk-taking among teens than there used to be when we were growing up in various ways, like less sex, less drinking, less drug use. I mean, some of this is great, right?
We're fine. We're good with that.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. But like, that's just sort of representing a general trend of less risk-taking and less independence. Yeah. It is a really, really big shift. I don't know that we know exactly. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of reasons for it, but I do think that now our tendency to sort of overprotect and coddle and make sure our kids are constantly comfortable and never having to experience hardship, that's going to lead to a generation of kids who don't really know or want to know how to or want to be on their own in the world, right?
Yeah,
It's just,
I know a lot of people who are dealing with 20-somethings who are like, well, I'm going to move back home. Like, why would I want to be anywhere else? These are my favorite people and the food is great and the rent is really cheap.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think part of that connection is connection, trusting in that they can have connections with people other than us. Like those connections are almost more important because it's like, you should not, I mean, I joke all the time. I'm like, you don't need friends. Mom's your bestie. But that's actually a joke, guys. Like that shouldn't be it, you know? And
Yeah.
I find that to be a little bit of a struggle. Like this is the best nest and we're the best people and let's all stay connected. But like, actually, you want them to be connected with other people other than you. And I
Yeah.
think the pandemic made that harder because we did
Yeah.
spend a lot of time being like making this connection
Right.
work.
It's just us, guys.
No, that's very true. I think the pandemic played a big role. My daughter is 10 and a lot of her friends won't, they don't feel comfortable at sleepovers yet.
Right.
Like there's-
That's the other thing. We're not allowed to do sleepovers anymore. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Yep. But yeah, I mean, when we, several years of not leaving the house as a kid,
Yeah.
like
it's
that is,
scary. I get it.
that's going
Right.
to really change your perspective on the world and on what you should be doing, how independent you should be. So
I think it goes to your overall point of like preparation over protection. I understand and I am very sympathetic to the protection element, but I do think that it's so important to recognize the water you're in and back up and be like, I'm preparing them to fly, not to live in the nest forever, which I think the pandemic kind of confused us on a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, let's talk about cultivating, because that's part 3 of this. You say it's the science of teaching kids how to engage with the world around them in ways that will keep them safe and healthy and cultivate a better tomorrow. All right, so that's a lot, but how do we get them? We're cultivating in them. You're a little bit in charge of the world that you're creating for yourself and for the rest of us. How do we instill that skill?
Yeah. So this section, it covers very different things. I talk about financial literacy. I talk about media literacy. Those feel very different. But honestly, there is a lot of overlap in the general strategies I recommend, which is basically like we need to talk to our kids regularly about things that we may not feel comfortable talking about, like money, and really like encourage our kids to be curious about the things that they're encountering in the world. So media literacy, when I interviewed experts on media literacy, they almost all said what you want to do is encourage your kids to ask questions about the media that they are consuming and think about why was it made, who was it made for, really keeping in mind there are people behind every media product that you're consuming, every show that you watch, every YouTube clip. It's all made by people who might have an agenda. So it's like having these open and regular conversations with kids about everything that they're encountering in the world and encouraging them to be curious about it, encouraging them to come to you with questions. And also like modeling that you don't have to have all the answers. We can figure this out together. Let's do some research. It's really helpful for media literacy when we take our kids through the process of answering a question, like how do we use Google and how do we know what sources to trust and why might this particular website not be trustworthy, but this one is, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really like a lot of just engaging with our kids about the world around them.
And man, it gets more complicated every day. I was laying in bed last night, which I'm not supposed to do, scrolling my phone. And I saw some story that was something about like King Charles is retiring or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's kind of big news, whatever. And then I remembered it this morning and it was just completely fake, but it was some AI generated thing on TikTok, I think probably. And I thought, wow, this is going to get harder. And this really is something that you have to be talking to your kids about, because from someone texting you, asking you for money. I have a kid who recently had one of those scams. You're going to be arrested because you didn't do this. And it's all coming at them. And as an adult, I can't figure that stuff out. So really, I was thinking just last night, I don't think I have enough actual conversations about, let's talk about what is coming at us and what we believe and don't believe.
Yeah, it is hard because I think we also feel like if we don't know the answer, then we don't want to talk about it. Like if we don't know exactly what to say about something, we're like, oh, I shouldn't talk about it with my kids. But we're never going to know exactly what to say about something like AI. And that's okay, but we should still be having these conversations, and it's okay. And it's actually good for our kids to see that we don't always know what's going on, but we're curious and we want to keep learning. Like that is, we were talking about polarization, like this sort of modeling a comfort with uncertainty and a lack of knowledge is actually really, really helpful for keeping kids open-minded and helping them recognize they don't always have to have an opinion or, all the knowledge or act as if they have the answers to everything.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but it is hard. Yeah.
I wanted to make a point. I mean, you make this point about the strategies that are in the book. First of all, there aren't 125 different strategies. It does kind of come down to modeling for our children the behavior. So in this example, like if you're looking at a search, like, oh, this is AI at the top. Let me go down a little further and let me find a source that I can trust about, is Tylenol safe when you're taking steroids, whatever. I'm not just going to read what the AI says. I'm going to scroll down, modeling that. First of all, the strategies that you suggest, the same modalities apply different ways. They're also free, as you
I love
out.
that
These
point.
are not
They are free.
challenging or even expensive. They're free. And I feel like that means that this is possible. I don't want this to be approached with like, this is work that we're not going to be able to do. This is more than I can handle. This is the last thing I need to do is employ 125 more strategies. This is easier than sometimes we think it is.
I'm glad that came through. And I was really reassured by that too. I mean, because I sometimes thought, oh God, when I interview media literacy people, they're going to tell me to do all this complicated stuff. And they were like, no, just ask your kids a lot of questions and encourage them to ask a lot of questions. And I'm like, that really, like, that's all I need to start with.
That's it.
And they're like, yeah, that's all you need to start with. And I'm like, I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah, and I think getting intentional and the framework is how are we surviving this? And that sometimes that's narrating stuff and giving voice to stuff that, well, the world is difficult, but here's this thing that I do once a week to try to help somebody else or do something that I think makes the world a little bit better. And that's why I do this thing. I think sometimes it's enough that like you see me going out, let's say to work in the community garden, but that sometimes it reminds me that you sometimes have to verbalize that a little bit. I'm worried about the earth and I'm worried about it. And therefore, one of the things I do to take my worry away is go work in the community garden once a day. I'm trying to cut down on my plastic, whatever it is that you're making the dialogue. I'm looking at the scary thing, I'm naming this scary thing, and then I'm taking a small action to try to be part of some sort of solution. Because I think sometimes some of this stuff feels like I don't want to put climate change on my 12-year-old shoulders, And I think sometimes I always joke about going to the aquarium and they show like the beautiful movie about this penguin. And then there's always the part at the end where they're like, the penguin is going to die because you use plastic. I'm like, ay, people, these kids are sick. But I think it's like putting those coping skills in the kids' hands and then listening to their concerns. And it seems really important work, I guess.
Yeah, there's several things in there that you're highlighting. I mean, one is just verbalizing to kids the choices we make and why we make them, which really helps them understand our values. If you make soup for your friend who has the flu, like tell your kids you're doing that because when you care about your friends and they're sick, you want to help them, right? Just really connect those dots for them. But then there's also this idea of helping kids understand that even when things are tough and things are bad, we always have some agency and there's always reason for hope. There's always things we can do, even if they're little things, but they can be meaningful. And so, talking about what you're doing in the community garden or where you decided to donate some money to, showing our kids the different ways in which we are trying to make a difference in the world, even if it feels small, but it's really powerful for kids.
So let's talk about the three main takeaways you had. The first one, which we've already talked about, is prepare more than you protect. The second one is listen more than you lecture. So you want to model this behavior, but not lecture about it. Or is this about something else?
So listen more than you lecture is what I want to do there is push against this idea that we should be in charge, of course. We're the parents. But that doesn't mean that we should be talking down to our kids and unwilling to listen to their perspective, even if they disagree with us, or unwilling to hear their take on why they should have more TikTok time. Like we should be talking to our kids about the concerns we have and what our expectations are, while also respecting what they have to say and inviting them to share their thoughts and opinions. Because what we know from the research, there's a lot of reasons that listening to our kids is beneficial. But one is when they feel heard and when they feel they have some agency, they're more willing to work with us and listen to us. And it's also, we know that listening to our kids, listening to people in general, like when people feel really listened to, they feel safer. And then they become more open-minded and more intellectually humble. So this ties back into polarization and things like that. When we listen to our kids, they actually are more willing to open their minds up, which is fascinating. So and also it connects us to our kids when they feel like we're listening to us. They feel more connected to us. They feel more respected. And that's just really powerful too.
And I will say, as an anxious parent, you have to really work against this because the minute they're like, well, do you know that someone posted? Don't ever post. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Post, stay forever. When you try to go to college, I don't even let them finish the story because I'm like, it's lesson time from mommy. And I do think that this is somewhere where I really struggle. And I really like this point. Like, let them talk. Not everything is then I'm just the jack in the box popping up to be like, don't send naked pictures to people. That's not helpful.
It is hard. It is hard. Yeah. But sometimes it's good for us to bite our tongues. And, if there's a point we want to make later about whatever they said that maybe makes us uncomfortable and we want to bring it back up, that's great. But in the moment, because if we keep snapping at them when they share stuff with us, then they're going to stop sharing stuff with us too, right? So that's the rub. But I feel like, oh my God.
I'm just making a little note to myself here. Yes, I'm learning and growing.
This segues nicely into the third takeaway, which is comfort more than you chide.
Yes. So this is really about how we handle and respond to our kids' feelings, especially negative feelings, really, because I think we're often told that kids should be seen and not heard. And when they're upset, I mean, it makes us feel uncomfortable when our kids are upset. We don't want them to feel sad or frustrated or angry. We want them to be happy. And so we often, when our kids are showing big feelings in public or sulky teenagers or whatever, we might dismiss their feelings. We might be like, this isn't a big deal. Why are you so upset? You need to calm down. We'll say things that kind of dismiss their emotional state of mind, make them feel like they shouldn't be feeling what they're feeling, or we'll try to fix them. We'll come in with problem solving, like, well, here's what you need to do. And really what helps the most, what the research suggests helps the most, is just letting our kids have those feelings, showing that we're welcoming them, we're okay with them, validating, saying that sounds really hard. That sounds really hard. It sounds like you really had a hard day. That sucks, whatever it is. That's so powerful for our kids. And it's something that I think we're told not to do sometimes. So, yeah.
It's another in the note to self column. Yes.
These are all, I know.
Working.
Me
Work
too,
in progress.
by the
Work in
way.
progress.
Work in progress all the way.
Melinda Wenner Moyer's new book is Hello, Cruel World, Science-Based Strategies for Raising Terrific Kids in Terrifying Times. We will put the link to buy the book in the show notes for this episode. You can get it wherever you buy books. But Melinda, tell our listeners where else they can find you.
My website is probably the best place to go. It's melindawennermoyer.com. And you can sign up for my Substack, Now What, through my website. And it has order links for my book. So yeah, thank you.
And we will link to that. So, of course, you don't have to write it down if you're currently operating a vehicle or changing a diaper or doing whatever else you're doing that's important. Melinda, this was a great conversation. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's OmniShade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.